Hello and welcome to the workshop, the Agile Values Workshop, for those on Zoom and on Facebook. I will be taking questions throughout, so feel free to ask whenever you feel. There will be a couple spots where we will stop to answer some questions specific to what's going on, and we will get things moving. So let's get started. So before we get into a lot of the agile values and how we're going to build them out and kind of function them through and make them work for the organization, we do need to talk about servant leadership because this is the main component of finding these agile values. In that uh, agile values are not top down. They're not driven by senior leadership or leadership. They're driven actually by the teams. They're driven out by the organization as a whole. So it's up to the leader to be that servant leader to get them to find what the organization's agile values are. Because if not, then the messaging, things just could go wrong in that type of environment. And it doesn't help anyone to have agile values that don't meet the needs of the employees, of everyone. And is this that they want to be able to, the servant leader, it's up for them to mentor, to kind of guide them as to what the agile values are. So here in a basic user story format, the servant leader, I want to mentor and engage with agile teams to ensure agile values are being embraced and to remove impediments to their adoption. The key component there is to ensure agile values are being embraced. So the best way to do that is to create them as a team to move forward and progress. From an academic perspective, the servant leader there are a lot of anecdotes and research and results that show servant leaders are create the better following, create the better leadership example. And when we're creating these agile values, this is what is needed to ensure one, from a change management perspective, the curve for any sort of change is drastically smaller. You don't have a lot of resistance against the change. And it's just creating an environment where if you're trying to be agile, this is what is needed to be agile. So if we look at today you're going to have a workshop so to get an understanding of what agile values is, how to create them, and how to become agile. And how do you know if you're in the right place? How do you know that this is the right thing for you to sit through for the next 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so to get the value you expect? Well, one of the reasons is if you're in an organization that is wants to be agile, that wants to move forward and to progress and evolve, the key thing is here is that you are part of the 95% of organizations that are maturing. They're still trying to become agile. It's those 5%. That's where you want the organization to achieve. You want to be agile from not just from a development team perspective, but from a organization, from a sales, from a marketing, from a support. And if you're providing services, how you're providing those services, you want to be agile. So this agile values can help bring what you need to get there. It's your stepping stone. So you're trying to ensure organization wide that you have the right behaviors and actions and outcomes to become agile. Most organizations, when they are, let's just say they're doing Scrum for development, they're doing Agile. They're kind of doing the steps and doing the iterations and doing kind of, yeah, we're going to do our daily stand ups and our reviews and our retrospectives. But as you go through it, it's just kind of rubber stamping type of events. You're not getting the full outcome of what you expect to get out of being agile. You want to be able to have the right game plan. Now, most organizations, when they are implementing agile methodologies, they kind of use and feel that they have to use the same game plan that other organizations, their competitors use, or even say, "Oh, Google is agile. We're going to follow Google." And the thing is, each organization is different, so there is a different playbook. Imagine two hockey teams that had the exact same playbook. It's probably going to end up in a tie a majority of the time. So you have to have the right playbook for your organization, and getting that is part of implementing these agile values specific to the organization. You want to be able to ensure that you're just not providing those motivational posters saying like, "Hey, yeah, we're going to do it, teamwork and all that stuff." The agile value should invoke an emotional response to everyone on getting the work done and working together. Those motivational posters, they are great. They do work to a point. But if you keep using them in organizations that keep using them, they just kind of fall on deaf ears. People will just walk by them and not think anything about it. They'll just say, "Oh, it's a poster." They don't feel motivated. Having the right agile values implemented specific to the organization and everyone living and breathing those values, that provides more motivation to employees than just a teamwork poster. So you're worth it. You're here because you want to achieve the first step, and or maybe even create a better foundation of your organization's agile values. So this is important for you. So to keep in mind, kind of keep those emails closed. To close your 20 browser windows. I'm at fault for this. I'll have more than 20 browser windows. Kind of keep be in a nice quiet area. Have those noise canceling headphones, or shut the door. If you, for my part, if you do hear a dog bark, that is my American Bulldog, Charlie, and he probably saw a plastic bag across the window. He's a very loud dog, so regardless of where I am and try to shut doors, you're probably going to hear him. So fingers crossed, knocking on wood, he just kind of stays asleep for the next 45 minutes and you'll be quiet on this end. And especially now with the pandemic, he will probably have their families at home, homeschooling and learning from that. Yeah, hopefully if the kids are in class, they're focused on that, so you can focus on this. So why should you trust me? Why should you say, "Jeremy, why do we need to hear what you have to say?" Well, I've walked in these shoes. Since Agile started, the Agile Manifesto came out in 2001. I've been using kind of the methodologies since then. I've been using them across. And I found that for the most part, for the early part, it just seemed like we were just doing waterfall, but in a shorter time frame and doing it in increments. It didn't seem that there was like the right kind of views and behaviors used. It seemed like the old way of doing things. And over the past 15 years, I started to see better way of doing the methodology and focusing more. And it was more turning into about the behaviors. I graduated with a psychology degree from university, and I started to look more into the behaviors and see it. And over time, working with peers, working with colleagues, started to see the behavior aspect of Agile and how that keeps a main focus. And part of this is ensuring the right values. Instead of kind of copying those motivational posters like we talked about, you're creating something specific for the team. And myself, I worked with teams where we created those values specific to them. And in doing so, it motivated drastically those teams. They saw a huge improvement, not only in their productivity, but also in their quality and how they're working together to get the work done. So present day, this is why I'm doing these webinars. This is why I work with teams and organizations now to help them become agile. Because there's a lot of frustrations that happen. And there's the way things are being built and the way things are done. Yes, with agile methodologies, things are going out faster. They are. There's no two ways about it. There's research out there that shows that. What the research doesn't show when it's talking about coming out fast is the amount of frustrations and headaches and impediments and bottlenecks that happen while things are being built. And it's those behaviors that cause the problem for Agile not working. That's why you'll see these Agile articles saying that, oh, Agile is dead. Agile is not working. Agile doesn't work for me. And part of it is, if you read through it, when you read through those articles, the root cause as to why it doesn't work is that they are still exhibiting old traditional behaviors, either them or their organization or people within the organization are still exhibiting those old behaviors. And for the most part, they may not even think that they're exhibiting those old behaviors. They think they're kind of doing Agile the way it should be done. These are ingrained in a lot of people's minds on how to get the work done. And it's the change in behavioral output from everyone involved, not even just the development teams, but how they interact with others and with executives and with their peers and with other groups. That interaction is what needs to be continued to be agile. So to do that, everyone has to exhibit those same behaviors. So imagine an agile environment where you had those clear definition of values, where the values are traced to the organization values. An organization has a mission and vision statement. They also have a bunch of value statements as well. If you look at Google's mission and vision statement and some of their values that they present on their company website, look through them in detail. Don't just read them. Look at them and understand the words that they're using. If you look at the words, they have an agile twitch to it. They show that they're being agile, whether it's in how they develop code or in their philanthropic endeavors. There's always an agile value within it. And in doing so, you're engaging that team. So when you imagine that environment where everyone's engaged, everyone is pumped and ready to go and being agile, and they do exhibit those behaviors. That would create an environment where maybe if you have a firefight, and for those that don't know what a firefight is in the business term, is those huge escalations where executives are called in at 5 o'clock in the afternoon for a conference call, and everyone kind of points fingers at the problem or a delay. In an agile environment, exhibiting those behaviors, using those agile values, those would be very rare occurrences because everyone would be communicating, collaborating, and working with each other to identify those risks and get things done. So by the end of this session, what will you see? You will see that being agile is more than just the implementation of a framework. It starts with Agile values. That's what is key. So what are we going to do? How are we going to step forward in the next 40 minutes or so? Well, here's how we're going to do. We're going to talk about defining those Agile values, communicating the values, how we're going to deploy them, ensure that they're aligned, and how to maintain them. That's the key thing, is how to maintain them. And that's the easy part. The first three are what is going to take a lot of resources. And what I mean by resources, I mean brain power. A lot of thought is going to have to go into this, because this is what's going to define everyone and what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. So one, in an organization without clear Agile values that supports its mission or resources and constraints will lead to frustrations across the board. Teams are going to have issues. And you can't just use the Agile values from the software development Agile manifesto, because those Agile values, those are generic. Those are broadening. Those are broad. You can create an Agile value or set of values for an organization using those as a foundation. So now you have the wording that is specific for your organization. So these clear values is what is creates the core of how everyone's going to behave, how the behavior across the organization is going to work, and how they're going to work together, how they're going to use the frameworks, the ceremonies, and the techniques. So again, imagine driving across the country without a GPS. Eventually, you'll get to the destination, but it's going to take a while. The GPS is what's going to help you navigate the most efficient way possible. Agile values for an organization are the same. They help define the right map and right trail for you to follow. And as I said, you can't copy other organizations' values, because if you think about this, in this analogy with a GPS, different organizations would be starting at different points on a map. So you can't use the same GPS directions if you're starting from a different location. So if we look at it before, so for my example, one of the clients I've worked with, when they were following an Agile methodology, they were struggling. They were running into problems. They had frustrations almost every release. There was those firefight situations that occurred, and it just became a negative environment. Starting to work with them, we worked on creating those Agile values. I could have gone in and looked at the processes, look at the flow of what they were doing, and say, okay, you're doing everything right. You're doing everything according to Scrum. It's just, it could be just your employees. You have bad apples in your bunch. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of organizations do. If something's not working and they're not getting the value they want, either they move people around or let them go. Or they just stop the process altogether and go back and revert back to the way waterfall was. And that's not needed. The key thing is they don't have the emotional attachment to move forward and be motivated at being agile. So when we worked with these teams, we set them up in a room similar to the second picture, and we started discussing Agile values. And we started looking at creating the Agile values specific to that organization and no one else. After a short period of time, we came up with them, worked with them some more, and now the teams were becoming in sync. They were starting to work together. Those firefights were few and far between and started to become scarce. Now they're functioning as one single unit within the organization, not just the development team. So what would it mean to you? What would it mean to you if your team, department, or your organization, if they had those clear values defined, right? Either within the team or across the organization. So I'm just going to wait for a couple to type in. For those on Facebook, just so you're aware, there is a delay with the slides and with the presentation. So put your comments down, put your questions down. I'll still be able to answer them. So as we look through, so there's, okay, one question is, it'd be great. It would be nice to have. Could be an issue in trying to deploy it. Yeah. So it's not easy. It's a change. And the reason a lot of organizations fail is that when they devise these values or mission statements or vision statements, is that they're driven by top leadership. They're driven by a select group of individuals that feel this is what we're going to do. Agile values cannot be done that way, cannot be created in that sense. They have to be a team effort, an enterprise-wide effort. So when we create these Agile values, again, let's look at Google. They have a lot of values that they use, and as you go through it, you see that it's specific to the teams that they can create. That they weren't created by some senior executive. Now, the next step is to ensure that you have the right way of communicating these values. Because again, if you just have values coming down from top down, saying these are our Agile values and everyone must follow them, do you think they're going to resonate? Do you think people will see them and say, great, that is exactly what we need, and we're going to follow that? They might, but they might not. We need to ensure that these values are clearly defined. We need to ensure that there is the right context within the organization. And above all else, they have to show the expectations of everyone, not just the leadership, of what everyone has to demonstrate when they are following these values. So it gives you that day-to-day behavior look. Now, imagine if it just came from the top down. It came from the CEO with the use of a consultant, and they came in and said, here's our Agile values. This is exactly what we need because this is similar to our competition down the street does it the same way. Well, that's just about the same as having a football coach a hockey team. There could be some success, but since they're two very, very different things, it's not going to work. So we need to understand that it cannot come from the management. It cannot come from the top down. It needs to come from everyone, from the organization as a whole. Think about it this way. In that second picture, when it shows a tree and shows the leaves, is there one part of the tree that states which branch grows which leaves? No. The tree itself knows where to grow. The leaves, the branches know what they need to do for everything to survive and to evolve and to grow. Agile values are the same way. When you use Obeya rooms to visually set up an anchor and communicate these agile values, that is the main message that goes across the tree for them to grow and to evolve. And we talked about before the servant leadership and to be a servant leader. In the end, that's what you're doing. You're helping everyone understand and how to be agile and follow what needs to be done. So the second question, would you feel that teams would be more motivated to follow leadership when they themselves are exhibiting these values? So again, I'll wait a couple minutes for in the chat to come up and to discuss. Yeah, of course. Walk the talk. Yeah. So it makes sense. So that's the other key thing. And we talked about this earlier, and this was one of the first few slides where they have to exhibit what they talk, what they say. So when these agile values are created, remember, they're not created just by the leadership. They're created by the teams. Leadership is a part of the team. They need to exhibit what's going on. That is going to create an environment where everyone will feel the additional trust. They will feel loyalty towards the organization. And things are just not being kind of passed down or thrown over a wall just to appease individuals. Everyone's walking the talk, and that's what needs to happen. So when these items are communicated, when these values are communicating, sending out a memo just doesn't do it. That's not considered a deployment. Posting it on your internal company website does not constitute deployment. Posting it on your organization website does not constitute deployment. There's more to it when you're deploying your agile values. You need to see them across all parts of the organization. Everything must be traced. For some of you that know, I've been in QA for a fair amount of time. And being in QA, traceability is one of the key things that everyone talks about. Or everything has to be traced back to user stories, to requirements, to the code. There has to be a flow. Agile values is no different. Agile values should be traced with everything that everyone does within the organization. We need to ensure that these agile values is not kind of one rules for one and rules for another, right? Every sports group has, every sports team, every sport around has a rule book. They don't have one rule book for all the average players and one rule book for the superstars. Now, I know some people might disagree with that, but if you look at it, there is still just one rule book. The rules have to be followed. Everyone must follow them. So when you have your leadership with creating those agile values, they should be exhibiting and following the behaviors within those values as well. That is what's going to help communicate them around when you deploy them. People see more with action than with words. That's a given across any organization or team or even anything in your personal life. If you see someone doing something outside of just saying what they're going to do, and it's in a positive manner, you're going to have a different feeling on what they do and how they're doing it. It ensures consistency across teams. So again, that another client had a basic organization set up. We worked through, we created those agile values and worked with the executives and the management and the teams to understand how do we get rid of the kind of command and control that is within the organization. How do we ensure that things are followed the way they should be followed? How do we exhibit this? In the end, we created a new organization view. So now everyone is in sync. Everyone is set up to be agile. It's no longer that command and control across. And there's a lot of different org charts you can see where like you will have kind of someone in the center and then kind of sub teams in the center and kind of clusters. You will have things that are very kind of flattened out from an organization perspective. Sometimes it's hard to show it on a chart on how everyone is to be agile. It's better with actions on how they be agile. That's where you'll see the biggest value. And ensuring that everyone in the executives are exhibiting it and communicating and following and living and breathing those agile values within the organization. That's where you're cooking with gas. That's where you are adding value, not only within the organization, but you're adding value to your clients as well. Because this is going to all come around full circle on how everything is done. So the next question is, could you see every department within your organization using Agile, being Agile, having those mindsets to be working in sync? Give it a couple minutes or another minute or so. So, no, I have a hard time thinking it. Okay. Yeah. Some people think yes. It can happen. I had a client where we made the finance team use agile behaviors. Now, for anyone that has ever dealt with a finance team within an organization, depending who they are very structured. They are following a way that I must have this before I can do this. I must have this before I can do that. And there are some components where you're right. There are things that are needed before anything else can be needed. But when you're doing the work across, like from a day-to-day perspective, it can have a better view when following being agile. Think about it this way. You can have teams that are kind of very, like even support. Support would have issues too, because they take a call, they deal with it, and they push it across. How can you be agile? The way you can be agile is understanding the flow and what needs to get done throughout the week. It's understanding, working with others and communicating with others on ensuring that flow of information is there and it being transparent. Without all that, you're just kind of going to struggle, and the other teams are going to struggle when they're working together. So when you create these agile values, if they don't align with everything else within your organization, within the organization's mission or vision or culture. And that's a big thing. If they don't align with the culture, then you just might as well create a motivational poster with these agile values and put it on the wall, because no one's going to listen to them. No one's going to follow them. When you initially create those agile values, are they going to be perfect right off the bat? No. But here's the thing. Here's the secret. The organization's being agile. When you're creating those agile values, you iterate. You move forward and continuously improve and getting what you want in the end, what everyone wants in the end. Agile values give you the behaviors, give you the guidelines for the behaviors that you need to have to exhibit. If the values don't link up or don't sync up with the values that you want the organization to follow, again, that's where you're creating that motivational poster, putting it on the wall, and people are just going to walk by it and not do anything with it. So they saw one organization, when we created these agile values, they saw an increase in productivity in 90 days. Nothing else changed. They were still following Scrum. They were still doing all the same work. They were completing all the same work that they were doing before. But they were doing it in a much more efficient and effective way. They started to see not only the agile values, they embraced the agile values, but they saw the organization leadership follow the values, exhibit those same behaviors. Now, they weren't doing, the leadership wasn't doing Scrum. They were doing other things. There's other methodologies out there, and organizations need to understand that the framework, any framework that is used, is a tool. It is not the overall methodology for to run an organization. And you need to ensure you have the right tool for the job. The executives in this organization, what I got them to do was put a Kanban board outside their office with stickies on what they were going to do within that week. That created a transparency for everyone to see. And some of the stuff that was on that Kanban board, employees wouldn't care. They may not fully understand what's going on, but showing the work, showing the movement of everything going across and what was expected to be done that week was key to get everyone else on board and improve what they were doing. So because these senior executives started showing the same behaviors and started exhibiting it, and they were talking about it, they were happy about it. They saw the value in what they were doing. They didn't think that they could do. So when the team saw that, they started pumping out a little bit more. They started putting a little more effort into it. And I'm not saying they were working a lot of overtime. They weren't. They were doing the regular 8 hours a day, but their productivity improved because they saw what the actions their leadership was taking. That goes a long way when you have the right agile values. When you're doing that, you are now having a conversation in the same language. Everyone is working the same way. Now, there might be different dialects being your frameworks, but everyone's still talking the same way. The example we used of the finance team, we started working with them. They were very slow. When they were kind of providing their budgets and money and everything else, they had a very um, structured way, so to speak, on to get things done. When we worked with them and to make them be agile and see the behaviors, they started to see where they can improve upon. They started to see where they can lean out, where they could make quick adjustments. And now, not only when they speak amongst themselves, when they speak with anyone else in the organization, they weren't just hearing what they were saying, they were listening to what they were saying. They were able to understand what they were saying, and they were able to act efficiently and effectively to meet their needs. So, do you have traditionally run departments like finance? Think that it would be easier to work with? Yes, yes, of course. Oh my God. See, and that's just it. It's not a one framework fits all. It's the behaviors behind it that get there. So everyone needs to evolve, and that evolution leads to continued success. I talked about earlier where it's like a living organism. And that's what an organization is, a living organism, where you have different components, different parts, all in sync, working together to evolve and survive. Agile values helps keep everything in sync. And again, it's not a one and done deal when you create these agile values. You're going to flow. You don't become stale. So before, one organization, they were very structured. This is how we're going to do. This is how we're going to do Scrum. This is how we're going to work. And it got stale because they never evolved. They never changed. Working with them and helping them understand the more inner workings of the events of being agile with the foundation of the agile values, they were able to evolve. And now they have the guidelines and things in place to continuously evolve. So what would stop traditional teams from moving to be a more adaptive, continuous improvement agile mindset? So as we look through, fire them all. No, again, we talked about this. Letting people go and bringing new people in, it's not going to make any changes. You may have some initial improvement, but most changes, the reason why they don't succeed is that there's a lack of understanding and involvement with it. If we look at Simon Sinek's Golden Circle, where he goes from why to the how to the what, from the inside out. If you have not heard of Simon Sinek's Golden Circle, please go to YouTube and Google search it, or YouTube search it and watch it. It's about 15 minutes. It is an excellent talk. He has books out too of finding your why and explains into detail. Your agile values is your why. They are your why. Everything else is just how the work gets done and what is used to get done. And your frameworks are the what. Your frameworks are the tools. So yeah, traditional teams, everyone can move into agile. Everyone can be agile. It's just there's got to be some work to get there. So otherwise, we talked about selecting and defining your agile values. We talked about communicating them, deploying them, ensuring the right alignment and maintaining. And doing that, you'll see the same results of what I talked about with my clients. you'll see that teams will become in sync. You'll see that those traditional teams that no one ever thought of could be agile become agile. You'll have those guidelines in place to move forward and succeed. There are multiple paths. As I said, using a GPS to get to where you need to get more efficiently and effectively. Don't copy anyone else because they're not going to take the same path. So today you showed up. You took time out of your busy day, and I know it's during lunch hour for some. Thank you for that. And you sat through for the past 50 minutes. And I appreciate that. And I hope that this was of value to you. You showed up because you're an agilist. You want to help achieve organization agility. You want to show the value at being agile. You want everything to evolve. And above all else, you want everyone to achieve that success. So to achieve that and go forward and how to become agile, there are two choices. And this is the great news, is you can do it yourself, which is trial and error, and go through. Or you can get that organizational agility faster and fast track it through. How do you do that? Well, one of the ways we can do it is through our own Agile packages. And these Agile packages give you the specific game plan for your organization. So let me explain even further. Within the Barrio Associates Consulting Group, we have our packages. We have our AWA, or Agile Warrior Academy. We have assessments through use of behaviors, which is framework agnostic. And we have training packages as well. So there's assessments, there's Agile performance hierarchy courses, coaching, workshops, enhancement programs, and startup programs. So our assessments is we help find those deep-rooted issues. Doesn't change your framework, it only makes it better. It's creating a tune-up, adding the jet fuel to make the engine run better. We have our Agile Performance Hierarchy course, which is 2-day training, all virtual. And it gives you a walkthrough of the different components to be agile. We have Agile coaching. Again, framework agnostic. We've worked with multiple Agile frameworks, and the behaviors behind them are all the same in what is needed. And it's now our coaching allows us to show you how to use that tool more effectively. We have our Agile Warrior Academy, our boot camp, our program, which involves a course through the APH, some one-on-one coaching calls, and support. Think of it as an 8-week workshop. And it's self-directed. So you'll be able to do this on your own time. And you will be held accountable for certain activities and questions and frameworks as we go through, so that to ensure that you're getting the value that you need to get out of it. If you want a specific workshop on behaviors with leadership or crafting, like building out the software or products or teaming or any of the such, we have 1-day workshops to help with that. We have a program, our enhancement program. So we have a APH course, we have some coaching days and an assessment. that can be done. And when we do these assessments are done. There is the initial assessment at the end, and then there is a follow-up assessment 6 months afterwards to show the improvements. The startup program is either for organizations that want to follow Agile, that want to do that Agile transformation, or they just want added kind of support with their transformation to move them forward. So I know you saw a lot of prices there, and as you saw, they kind of increased, obviously, as we went along. So what's the value? Well, when you look at the value, it's more than just kind of paying one-to-one and such. And because you stuck around, I'm not going to be charging what you saw there. So you saw in these overall prices, here's the review. Here's the prices that were looked at. But for you guys, because you stuck in with this, we're offering you 30% off to get the training you need, that unmatched value. And at 30% off, there is a reduction in the price. So some of the things that we're also doing is we're providing a breakthrough call. And we're doing this because we believe we're passionate about being Agile, and we want to help everyone else become Agile as well. And we feel that even with this free call, we'll be able to help you out, provide some guidance, provide some answers. And if we're able to move forward and do any more work together, great. If not, the call is just as good. We're here to help. So to schedule that call, there's limited spots available. Scan the QR code and you'll see our schedule and you'll be able to book a call. Or you can reach us through our website, or you can send me an email. Before we close, are there any other questions regarding this, regarding everything we talked about? No. Great information. Good. Glad. I'm glad you all enjoyed this. And if you do have come up with any questions towards the end, feel free to give me a call. Thank you. Goodbye.